we're going live. It's kind of a nice day, and we'll take advantage of the peace. Thanks for being here, and welcome. So here, Jeffrey has made another showcase for us. Even better, he's made a website, and I'll show you that. If you recall in my last video, his showcase that he titled Challenge for a Civilized Society. And it was a great showcase. And he's just emailed me and informed me that he has this new website. I see here, I hope we can see it. Let me drop that down a little. challengeforacivilizedsociety.com. And here we have home, and if we click on showcases, as I just have here, we get these showcases. So we pretty much looked at showcase 1. I don't even think we finished it, and it's great. It's really user-friendly the way he's laid it out on this website. And I'm just going to scroll through and kind of see where we ended. Scroll. I think we were somewhere around these clamps. Clampage found all over this realm. There were some in the Americas, and this is just some of the best compiling of this research that I've seen, because it comes from our community. And it's not to say that we don't have the answers. But I think prior to our community, nobody was really asking the question. How can you have the right answers if you don't ask the right questions? And for me, the most important aspect at this moment in time is the similarities. For instance, when looking at these clamps, when we see them all over the world, when we see similar cathedrals or a style of architecture, brings us to the notion that these are not the works of a separate people. And all these styles that they would tell us now are of a separate people can be found all over the world. The Romanesque style, the Moorish style, the Gothic, and Richardsonian. All just names for styles that can be found everywhere and are. Sorry, I think I was being too serious. Chief thought so. So, perhaps a little more lighthearted moving forward. I think some of the best accounts may be the old texts from India. No people are more versed in the idea of civilization blossoming and collapsing in the blink of an eye, over and over again, blossoming like a lotus. When this research started, it was Tartaria. Really, a particular architectural style was attributed to these people, but I don't think it was literal. It was just a way to describe all of this research. Slang, but it doesn't matter. It's essentially the same, built as the foundation of this whole realm. All these blocks are amazing, and I'm sure he has it in here, but what we find is these works continue under sea level. We've looked at the ruins of Yonaguni in Japan, or off the coast of Japan. Some of the largest man-made structures that I've ever seen, all lying underwater, as if there wasn't water at one point. We see evidence for giant trees, but what if all the giant trees were destroyed? For whatever reason, where would all their water go? And I think it's a plausible explanation for all the flooding, unless the trees were taken elsewhere. But otherwise, mainstream tells us all these waters came from asteroids. So the asteroid, the icy comet or asteroid, is burning up in the atmosphere and delivers some water. I mean, that's what we're told. Here we see giant blocks in both old depictions. Actually, it looks like quite possibly the same spot even, or close to it, but it's not. And look at their little cart here. Very fascinating cart, maybe to move their luggage. We see depictions of the old people toiling in the mud. And I love making videos of abandoned looking North American cities because I think it's very grounding, brings it much closer to home than, say, these pictures. But essentially we're dealing with the same thing, an abandoned realm. It's the same damn thing. And these dates are in a much earlier time period, we're told, and it's the exact same thing. New people being introduced, and perhaps survivors coming back together. This could happen over the course of 100 years after a reset, and just dealing with a mess, dealing with an absolute mess and having to jumpstart this whole realm again. A lot of cleaning, and I think it takes another 100 years to clean, and eventually technology catches up and demolishing can begin to take place, and essentially the reshaping and rewriting of history. What is certain, and I say that loosely, is that we're not dealing with carved stone at this point. The old stuff is simply made, it's simply cast, just the way we don't carve concrete, we pour concrete today. And it's no different in the old world. If they needed metal, they made metal. If they needed gold, they made gold. I think this research has expanded my mind in a lot of ways. Simply seeing the old world over and over again. It's like looking at somebody's art, but in this case, the art of a past civilization. And after a while, you get to know them, and you still don't understand everything, and most of it is buried underground. And here's a great example of buried underground. It's a pyramid, and they've excavated little corners of it, and they're just these massive blocks. The thing is buried. And yet just in this picture we see two eras. The giant people, a giant race. I mean, who needs a pyramid that big? Well, someone did. And then they're gone. And then another people come along and build this cathedral on top. I'll put a picture of the one in Mexico. We'll compare. But yeah, as beautiful as these buildings are, these are the most recent. I mean, nothing like the pyramids, or even Petra in Jordan, for example. But even these, being the most recent, have a poor explanation. I mean, similar to slaves building the pyramids, or the silly stories that we were given in school. Here is the Musée du Congo, so the Museum of the Congo. We see the same architecture. It doesn't matter which part of the realm. And here we can see the entrance to Notre Dame in Paris. Look at the size of these doors compared to the people and their horse and carriages. And recently in a video, I will have shown abandoned Portland, Oregon, and the highest set of windows on one of the buildings I was showing had this same style, cathedral style. As we can kind of see here, I mean, each level has a different style window, square, rounded, and then up at the top, I'm not sure if it's so in this particular building. And what an amazing people. What a artistic people. Not this man. No. This man is probably responsible for these piles found all around here. This really reminds me of something I wanted to talk about today, but didn't. Maybe I'll inject some pictures. This looks like some underground realm, perhaps in India, judging from this architectural style. The colonnade in Rameswaram really seems Indian feeling and seems super futuristic. This is so advanced. What are they even telling us this is? A subway system? That's what it looks like. I mean, it looks like a train system in ruins. It looks like it ran off some free energy tech up here. Some kind of magnet system that would give it a push, pushing the train along magnetically. And anyway, what I would have talked about today is the underrealm in Pennsylvania. These explorers have discovered an entrance, many entrances, under Pennsylvania, and these tunnels ran all the way to Indiana and under Ohio. Completely mind-blowing. Similar to how we saw a map provided by Jeffrey of these underground tunnel systems, the same can be found in North America. And these explorers are essentially finding the same thing, just like this. And now people can contest our research for everything above the ground. But when it comes to things like this, it becomes irrefutable that we're dealing with a past and great civilization. whatever you want to call it. In fact, this tunnel system is what the one looks like in the Pennsylvania Underground. It was kind of pointed and really looks like the building has tipped over. All the buildings often have kind of a slant. And here we can see a section on polygonal masonry. And here we see Baalbek in Lebanon displaying this polygonal style with nubs. And then of course in Peru, which is more famous for the polygonal style, but we see it everywhere. Here we see it in China. And look at this. I mean, this is now on the scale of the ruins of Yonaguni that I was talking about underwater. And look at this, an arch is buried. Here we see polygonal in Japan. And here we see 3 different Eiffel Towers. Japan, England, and France. Super tech of the old world. And in fact, a lot of these depictions that we see show the Eiffel Tower looking like this, even more advanced, these extra flares here. And I made a video once, and in my research was really shocked, actually, at how many, essentially thousands of these towers there were everywhere. Here a little look at the reset, just have a little peek, why don't we? Showing everything being destroyed by lightning or plasma, and showing how absolutely advanced everything is, and just carving out canyons and really making a mess of things. And yet this is just the surface. Look how this cathedral is being swallowed up into the earth. Oh, this is great. Reconstruction of Notre. So phase 1, which will take a few years, will cost 165 million euros. Or $197 million. Some people think it will cost as much as 8 billion if comparing it to the British Parliament building in London. Unbelievable. So here, just to show you what we're dealing with these structures, how much it actually costs to fix them. They're already built. Here, a man named Hendrickson notes, it's pretty amazing to think about how they did this with what they had, the tools and the technology they had at the time. Experts familiar with medieval restoration work said it could take 15 to 20 years to rebuild the roof, spire, and parts of the stone vaulting. There we go. I think this is the palace in Brussels, one of my favorite. Just an absolute mega mind blower. I guess we'll just finish up with these bricks I wanted to show. Old bricks, history at your feet. And I've been wanting to talk about it for months. After doing a lot of research on the bricks I find in Utah, the bricks that Imagekind found on the coast of California, can be traced back to Europe. And I think that's very important. We have bricks, and yet we have no proof of the scale that would have been needed for all the bricks we find in America. And then when we look at the stamps and trace them back, they trace back to Europe, as is the case with T-Car, I believe. And I think this is a great proof. It's kind of where the rewritten history ends. We're given elaborate stories for how these buildings came to be. Usually more of the story focuses on the architect and not the builders or the building materials required for building everything that we see in all these abandoned cities throughout the realm. What we find is one building can be 15 million brick, and you have thousands and thousands of buildings in a very early time period. And I didn't find what I was looking for, but I found this. And I thought I would just scroll through some of these super exotic bricks. So perfect, seeming to have some metal mixed in with it. And I actually got on Home Depot and Lowe's websites to check out bricks. And a brick goes for about $1 or $2 these days. So here we are at the Lowe's site. And we have a clay brick for 48 cents. And it looks like it's out of stock. It has a 20-year warranty, and let's see what people had to say. Great reviews. Now, if we look at this other brick for 73 cents, they call it a solid clay brick, But when we look at the reviews, people are disappointed. They say it's made of concrete. Concrete, this is not clay, it's a cement brick. And I will continue my research and try to find some maybe old-fashioned brick makers. But I think this is a very important part of this research, especially when these bricks are stamped. They should have a paper trail, and yet it falls apart. When you look at our American bricks, were sent back to Europe, and a lot of these bricks look melted, but I'm not going to go there today. Those with eyes can see it. This is a calcium silicate brick, an unknown manufacturer, found on the Cumbrian coast. There we go. Just a mystery brick. Looks melted. Beautiful stamp, beautiful build, and a mystery. Here we have a story, and these bricks are beyond exceptional. Just like everything, the further back you go, the more exquisite. So let me know your thoughts. These bricks look like fine chocolates. Okay, I think I'll go quick bonus here. We've looked at French Lick Resort in Indiana before, and recently they just discovered these ruins underground. Last year, looks like. And here they were completely baffled. This is called the French Lick Resort. It was all about the exotic springs that they had here in the 1800s. And yet they didn't even know where the springs were very often. This was a brand new one that's been discovered. And here we can see an old photograph of it, but yet somehow it had become lost under all this dirt and mud. The spring had been buried for more than 100 years. No one knew it still existed. It originally had a structure over it, as we saw in the photos here, but lost to time and memory. And they're very excited. It's such an amazing piece of history. We want it to be a feature. It's the only original spring water on the property. It still has a long way to go until it's cleaned up and ready for public display. So yeah, this old resort still has some secrets to reveal. I thank you for being here this week. I love you all. God bless, and I'll see you soon.